The word was barely a whisper, soft, sleepy, innocent, but it changed everything. Ifeoma stood frozen in the hallway outside Ju-Jin's room, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She'd just comforted the little girl after a nightmare, rocked her back to sleep, tucked her in with gentle hands and whispered promises. And now, through the crack in the door, she could hear Ju-Jin mumbling in her sleep. "Good night, Uma. Love you, Uma. Uma. Mother." Ifeoma's legs went weak. Behind her, she heard Jae-Sung's sharp intake of breath. She turned slowly and saw his face in the dim hallway light. He looked like a man watching his entire world shift on its axis. "She called you?" His voice broke. They stood there in the silence, the weight of that one word pressing down on both of them like a physical thing, because they both knew what it meant. This wasn't temporary anymore. This wasn't just a 3-week arrangement. This wasn't something they could walk away from without leaving pieces of themselves behind. In 5 days, Jae-Sung and Ju-Jin would board a plane back to Korea. In 5 days, Ifeoma was supposed to go back to her normal life in Nigeria, like none of this had ever happened. But how do you walk away from a child who calls you mother in her sleep? How do you leave a man whose eyes are telling you he's falling just as hard as you are? If you're just joining us, stop. Go back and watch part 1 right now because you need to know how we got here. You need to understand how a chance meeting on an airplane turned into the most complicated, beautiful, terrifying love story you've ever seen. But if you're caught up, if you remember the airport tantrum and the chin-chin and the 2 weeks that changed 3 lives forever, then drop a raised fist in the comments and buckle up. Because part 2 is where everything falls apart before it can come back together. This is where fear wins. This is where the past comes knocking. This is where Ifeoma makes the biggest mistake of her life. Let's go. She must have stood there for a few minutes, lost in thought, replaying the day, the flight, the tantrum, the coffee shop, Ju-Jin's pinky promise, when a quiet voice from the hallway made her jump. She actually didn't observe that Jae-Sung was waiting in the hallway. "She usually fights bedtime for at least an hour," he said quietly. "How did you do that?" "I just read her a story and talked to her." "I read her stories. She still fights bedtime with me." Ifeoma smiled. Maybe she just needed someone new. Kids are weird like that sometimes. They stood there in the hallway for a moment, and Ifeoma became very aware that they were alone for the first time since the airport. Aware of how tall he was, how intense his eyes were when they focused on her like this. "Thank you," he said again, "for today, for making her happy. She makes it easy. She's a wonderful kid." "She is." Jae-Sung paused, seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "I want you to know that you have complete freedom here. This isn't a prison. If you need time to yourself, space, whatever you need, just say so. I appreciate that. And if at any point this becomes too much, if you change your mind, you can leave. No judgment, no hard feelings." Ifeoma tilted her head, studying him. "Are you trying to give me an out?" "I'm trying to make sure you don't feel trapped." There was something in his voice, something that made Ifeoma think he understood what it felt like to be trapped better than most people. "I gave you my word," she said firmly. 3 weeks. I'm not going anywhere." Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or hope. "Good night, Ifeoma." "Good night, Jae-Sung." She went to her room, closed the door, and leaned against it. What had she just gotten herself into? The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of laughter and warmth that Ifeoma hadn't experienced in years. Every morning, she woke up to Ju-Jin knocking on her door. "Ifeoma, are you awake? It's morning. Time for breakfast." They established routines, breakfast together, all 3 of them, when Jae-Sung wasn't rushing off to early meetings. Ju-Jin liked pancakes shaped like animals, and Ifeoma discovered she was surprisingly good at making them. Jae-Sung drank his coffee black and read the news on his tablet, but she noticed he smiled more when Ju-Jin told her rambling stories about her dreams. Mornings were for learning. Ifeoma taught Ju-Jin simple braiding, how to sound out words in her English books, how to count in Igbo just for fun. The little girl soaked it all up like a sponge. Afternoons were for playing. The park down the street became their favorite spot. Ju-Jin would run and climb and swing while Ifeoma pushed her higher and higher. "Touch the sky, Ifeoma, I'm touching the sky." Sometimes Jae-Sung would meet them there after his meetings ended early. The first time it happened, Ifeoma looked up from the sandbox, where she and Ju-Jin were building a castle, and found him standing by the fence, just watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Appa!" Ju-Jin had shrieked with delight. "Come help us. We're building a castle for the princess." "I don't know anything about building castles, princess." "Ifeoma will teach you. She's really good at it." And somehow Ifeoma ended up teaching one of Korea's most dangerous men how to properly pack sand into a bucket to make castle towers. "Like this?" he asked, concentrating on the task with the same intensity he probably brought to his business deals. "Perfect. Now flip it over gently." He did, and the tower held its shape. Ju-Jin cheered like he'd just performed magic. The look on his face, that small, proud smile, did something strange to Ifeoma's heart. Evenings became her favorite time. Dinner together. All of them. Ju-Jin insisted they all had to be at the table. No phones allowed, which was apparently a new rule she'd just invented. "We're a family at dinner. Time," she announced seriously. "And families talk to each other." Jae-Sung and Ifeoma had exchanged glances over her head, but neither of them corrected her. They talked about everything and nothing. Jae-Sung told stories about growing up in Seoul, carefully edited for a 5-year-old audience. Ifeoma shared stories about Nigeria, about her big, loud family, about the organized chaos of Abuja. Ju-Jin listened with wide eyes like they were telling her fairy tales. "Tell me more about your niece," Ju-Jin would beg. "The one who's my age. Does she like to color too?" "She loves to color. I think you two would be great friends. Maybe we can visit Nigeria someday and I can meet her." Ifeoma's chest tightened every time Ju-Jin talked about the future, like it was a given that they'd all still be together. After dinner came bath time, story time, tucking Ju-Jin into bed. And then those quiet hours when Ju-Jin was asleep and it was just Ifeoma and Jae-Sung. They'd somehow fallen into the habit of having tea together in the living room. Not every night, but most nights. They'd talk about their days, about Ju-Jin, about nothing in particular. Ifeoma learned that he took his tea with honey, that he had a younger sister back in Korea he worried about, that he'd built his business from nothing, though he still never specified exactly what that business was, that he loved his daughter more than anything in the world, but sometimes felt like he was failing her. "You're not failing her," Ifeoma had told him one night. "She's happy. She's loved. That's what matters. She's happy now because you're here. What happens when you leave?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with things neither of them wanted to acknowledge. "We'll figure it out," Ifeoma had said, even though she had no idea how. Jae-Sung learned things about her too, that she was a nurse back in Nigeria but had been considering going back to school, that she loved to read but never had enough time, that she'd wasted 12 years on someone who didn't deserve her, though she didn't give him all the details. "He was a fool," Jae-Sung said simply when she mentioned Chidi in passing. "You don't even know what happened." "I know enough. Anyone who had you and let you go was a fool." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact and certain, made Ifeoma's breath catch. The tension between them grew slowly, like water heating degree by degree. Stolen glances across the dinner table, hands brushing when they both reached for something at the same time, the awareness of him in a room, even when she wasn't looking. She noticed things she shouldn't notice, the way he rolled up his sleeves when he was working from home, the rare, genuine smiles he gave when Ju-Jin said something funny, the protective way he touched his daughter's head when he kissed her goodnight, the intensity in his eyes when he looked at Ifeoma, and she was pretty sure he noticed things about her too, the way his gaze would follow her when she moved around the room, how he'd watch her with Ju-Jin, with an expression that looked almost like longing. The way his voice got softer when he said her name, but neither of them crossed that invisible line, because this was temporary, because she was essentially his employee, because it would complicate everything. They were very, very careful, until they weren't. It happened on day 12. Ifeoma was in the kitchen making Ju-Jin's favorite banana bread when Jae-Sung came home early from his meetings. She heard him come in, heard him talking quietly to someone on his phone in Korean. Yes, it's done. We can return to Seoul in 5 days. Everything is finalized. 5 days. They had 5 days left. Ifeoma's hand stilled on the mixing bowl. She'd known this was coming. Of course she'd known. 3 weeks, they'd agreed. 3 weeks, and then they'd all go back to their separate lives. So why did hearing it said out loud feel like someone had reached into her chest and squeezed her heart? Something smells good. She jumped. Jae-Sung had entered the kitchen so quietly she hadn't heard him. Banana bread. Ju-Jin requested it. Of course she did. Where is she? Napping. She insisted she wasn't tired, but she fell asleep on the couch 10 minutes into her movie. Jae-Sung smiled. That sounds like her. He moved to stand next to her at the counter, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Can I help? You want to help me bake? Why not? I can follow instructions. So she taught him how to measure flour properly, how to mix wet and dry ingredients separately, how to test if the batter was the right consistency. They worked side by side in comfortable silence, and Ifeoma tried very hard not to think about how domestic this felt, how right it felt. I heard you on the phone, she said quietly. 5 more days? His hands paused in there, measuring. Yes, the deal finalized early. We could leave sooner, but... He trailed off. But I told them we'd stay the full 3 weeks. Ju-Jin deserves that. Ifeoma deserves that, his tone seemed to say. What happens after? She asked, even though she knew she shouldn't. After we all go back? Jae-Sung was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I'll need to find another nanny. Ju-Jin will adjust, eventually. Will she? He met her eyes, and the pain in them was stark. She has to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. His voice was rough. What else can I do, Ifeoma? Ask you to uproot your entire life? Move to Korea? Give up everything for people you've known for 2 weeks? You could stay here, she whispered, and immediately regretted it. I can't. My business, my life, everything is in Korea. Ju-Jin's school, her doctors, my family. I can't just... He stopped, closed his eyes. This was supposed to be simple. 3 weeks. Temporary help. Why doesn't it feel simple anymore? Ifeoma's heart was racing. They were standing too close. She should step back. She should change the subject. She should remember all the very good reasons why this was a terrible idea. Instead, she said, because somewhere between the airport and right now, this stopped being about just helping Ju-Jin. Jae-Sung's eyes opened. He was looking at her with such intensity that she forgot how to breathe. Ifeoma. A crash from the living room made them both jump. I'm okay, Ju-Jin's voice called out. I just knocked over the lamp. It's not broken. The moment shattered. Jae-Sung stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I should... He gestured toward the living room. Yeah, go. He left, and Ifeoma stood alone in the kitchen, her heart still pounding. This was getting complicated. This was getting so complicated. She finished the banana bread mechanically, her mind spinning. Put it in the oven, set the timer, cleaned up the counter. She was wiping down the mixing bowl when she heard footsteps behind her. Jae-Sung was back. But something was different. His controlled mask was cracking. She could see it in the way his shoulders were tight, the way his jaw was clenched, the way his hands were shaking slightly at his sides. Ju-Jin's fine, he said quietly. Just knocked over a lamp. Nothing broke. That's good. Silence stretched between them, heavy, loaded. I can't do this, he said suddenly. Ifeoma turned to face him fully. Can't do what? Pretend. Keep my distance. Act like you're just the nanny. He ran a hand through his hair, completely destroying the perfect styling. Act like I'm not falling apart at the thought of you leaving in 5 days. Her breath caught. Do you know what my life was like before you walked into it? His voice was rough, raw, in a way she'd never heard before. Empty. I woke up, went through the motions, took care of my daughter, handled my business, went to bed. Every single day exactly the same. No color, no warmth, just existing. He took a step closer. Ju-Jin's mother left when she was 3 months old. Just walked out one morning and never looked back. Said she couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't love a child she never wanted. Couldn't love me. His laugh was bitter. Before her, there were others. Women who wanted my money, my power, my connections. Women who smiled at me and whispered sweet things, but disappeared the moment life got hard. Another step. I told myself it didn't matter. Told myself I didn't need anyone. That as long as I had Ju-Jin, I'd be fine. I built walls so high nothing could get through. His eyes locked on hers. And then you happened. Ifeoma's heart was breaking with every word. You walked onto that plane with your beautiful smile and your warm heart, and you didn't want anything from me. You just saw my daughter. Saw her as a person worth knowing, worth loving. And somewhere between the chin-chin and the airport tantrum and these past 2 weeks, you broke through every single wall I'd built. His voice cracked. I'm falling in love with you, Ifeoma. No, that's a lie. I've already fallen. Completely. Terrifyingly. And I know it's too soon, and I know it's insane, and I know you came here to escape from love, not run headfirst into it again. He was standing right in front of her now, close enough that she could see the desperation in his eyes. But I'm begging you, don't leave. Don't be another person who walks out of my life. Don't be another person who makes me believe in something beautiful and then takes it away. Tears were streaming down Ifeoma's face. I know Chidi hurt you. I know he wasted 12 years of your life. I know he made you afraid to trust anyone again. Jae-Sung's voice dropped to a whisper. But I'm not him. I will never be him. If you stay, if you give me a chance, I will spend every single day proving that you made the right choice. Jae-Sung, I'll give you everything he never did. Marriage, commitment, a family that actually wants you, a man who wakes up every morning grateful that you exist. His hands were shaking. I'll move to Nigeria if that's what you need. I'll split my time between countries. I'll learn Igbo. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please, please don't leave me too. The last words came out broken, and Ifeoma saw it then, saw past the controlled exterior and the dangerous reputation and the expensive suits, saw the scared little boy who'd been abandoned over and over, saw the father who'd do anything for his daughter, saw the man who'd finally let his guard down and was terrified she'd destroy him for it. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. So am I. I'm absolutely terrified. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face in his hands. But I would rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Can you say the same? She opened her mouth to answer. A sleepy voice drifted from upstairs. Appa, where are you? I had another bad dream. Jae-Sung closed his eyes, fighting for control. When he opened them, the vulnerability was still there, but the walls were starting to come back up. I should go, Ifeoma finished. She needs you. He nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. Think about what I said. Please, just think about it. Then he was gone, heading upstairs to comfort his daughter. And Ifeoma stood alone in the kitchen, her heart in pieces, tears on her face, and a choice looming in front of her that would change everything. Drop complicated in the comments if you can feel the tension building. We're almost at the end of part 2, and trust me, you are not ready for what's about to happen. That night, after Ju-Jin was asleep, Ifeoma lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. 12 days. She'd been here for 12 days, and somehow this family had worked their way into her heart in a way she hadn't thought possible. Ju-Jin with her endless questions and her purple skies, The way she reached for Ifeoma's hand automatically now. The way she'd started calling her my Ifeoma instead of just Ifeoma. And Jae-Sung. Dangerous, controlled, intimidating Jae-Sung, who smiled at his daughter like she hung the moon. Who made terrible sandcastles and learned to braid hair and listened to Ifeoma's stories about Nigeria like they were the most important things he'd ever heard. She'd come to South Carolina to forget about love, to heal from Chidi's betrayal, to protect her heart. Instead, she was falling, hard and fast and completely terrifying. And in 5 days, it would all be over. She must have finally fallen asleep sometime after midnight, because the next thing she knew, there was a gentle knock on her door. Ifeoma? Jae-Sung's voice quiet and urgent. Ifeoma, I'm sorry to wake you, but Ju-Jin is having a nightmare. She was out of bed and across the room in seconds, not even bothering with her robe. Ju-Jin's room was dimly lit by the moon nightlight. The little girl was thrashing in her bed, crying in her sleep. No, don't go. Please don't leave me. Everyone leaves. Ifeoma's heart shattered. She climbed into the bed and gathered Ju-Jin into her arms, holding her close and rocking her gently. Shh, sweetheart. I'm here. I'm right here. Ifeoma? Ju-Jin's eyes opened, disoriented and filled with tears. I'm here, baby. You were having a bad dream. Ju-Jin clung to her, her small body shaking. You were leaving. Everyone was leaving, and I was all alone, and... I'm not leaving. Not yet. I'm right here. Promise? I promise. Ifeoma held her, rocking slowly and humming softly until the little girl's breathing evened out and she fell back asleep. Only then did Ifeoma look up and realize Jae-Sung was still there, standing in the doorway. The light from the hallway silhouetted him, but she could see enough of his face to recognize the expression. Gratitude, pain, and something else. Something that looked like longing. She carefully laid Ju-Jin back down and tucked the covers around her, then tiptoed out of the room. Jae-Sung closed the door quietly behind them. They stood in the hallway, and Ifeoma was suddenly very aware that she was in her pajamas, her hair wrapped in her nighttime scarf, no makeup, completely vulnerable. Thank you, Jae-Sung said quietly. She wouldn't let me comfort her, just kept crying for you. She's scared. She knows we only have 5 days left. I know. He looked wrecked. I don't know what to do. How to prepare her for me leaving. Ifeoma's voice cracked slightly. How do you prepare a 5-year-old for another person walking out of her life? They stared at each other in the dim hallway. I can't do this, Ifeoma whispered. I can't pretend this is just a job anymore. I can't pretend that walking away in 5 days won't destroy me too. Ifeoma, I came here to forget about love, to protect myself from getting hurt again, and instead She stopped, pressed her hand to her mouth. Instead you what? His voice was rough. Instead I fell in love with your daughter, and maybe with you too. The words hung in the air between them. Jae-Sung closed his eyes like he was in pain. When he opened them again, they were burning with intensity. I've been trying so hard not to feel this, he said quietly, trying to keep distance, trying to remember this was temporary, professional. But every time I see you with Ju-Jin, every time you smile, every time you... He took a step closer. I can't stop thinking about you, about what it would be like if you stayed. Not for 3 weeks. Forever. Ifeoma's breath caught. Jae-Sung, I know it's impossible. I know the logistics are insane, but A small voice interrupted them. Amma. They both froze. The sound had come from Ju-Jin's room. Ifeoma's hand was shaking as she slowly pushed the door back open. Ju-Jin was still asleep, curled on her side, but she was smiling now, and she was mumbling very clearly in her sleep. Good night, Amma. Love you, Amma. Amma, the Korean word for mother. Ifeoma backed out of the room slowly, her heart in her throat. When she turned around, Jae-Sung was staring at her with an expression that looked like his heart was breaking and healing all at once. She called you... His voice failed him. I heard. Ifeoma's eyes were burning with tears. Jae-Sung, I can't let her call me that. I can't let her think I'm her mother when I'm leaving in 5 days. It's not fair to her. It's not. Then don't leave. The words landed between them like a bomb. What? Jae-Sung stepped closer, and there was something desperate in his eyes now. Something raw and unguarded. Don't leave. Stay. Come back to Korea with us. Or I'll stay here. I'll figure something out. I don't care about the logistics anymore. I just know that I can't... His voice broke. I can't lose you. Ju-Jin can't lose you. Please. Ifeoma felt tears streaming down her face. This was everything she'd wanted. Everything she'd been afraid to even hope for. And it terrified her completely. I need to think, she whispered. This is too much. It's too fast. I need to think. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. She walked to her room on shaking legs, closed the door, and leaned against it. Her phone was on the nightstand. Without thinking, she picked it up. There was a text message, waiting, from Chidi. Chidi, I can't stop thinking about you. I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. I'm booking a flight to South Carolina. Please don't block me. Let me see you. Let me explain. I love you. I've always loved you. And just like that, her past and her present collided. She had 5 days to make a choice. Go back to what she knew. What was safe. What was familiar. Or jump into the terrifying unknown with a man and a child who'd somehow become her whole world in just 2 weeks. She slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor, phone in her hand, tears on her face. What do I do? She whispered to the empty room. No one answered. To be continued in part 3. Drop stay if you want Ifeoma to choose Jae-Sung and Ju-Jin. Drop run if you think she should protect her heart. And drop a raised fist. Be sheer if you're emotionally wrecked right now, because same. Part 3. The finale is coming. And I promise you, things are about to get messy. Chidi is on his way. Jae-Sung is ready to fight. And Ju-Jin? That little girl is about to break all of our hearts. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 3. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the finale. See you soon.